The question of what ancient humans actually ate is not merely a search for a menu. It is the fundamental story of how our species emerged from the shadow of extinction. For the vast majority of our history, our ancestors lived in a state of absolute resource uncertainty, where every calorie was a hard-won victory against a landscape designed to keep us starving. When we analyze the archaeological record, we see that the earliest members of our lineage were not the noble hunters of popular myth, but rather the most desperate and opportunistic scavengers on the African savanna. Long before we had the technology to bring down large game, our ancestors trailed behind the lions and hyenas, waiting for them to abandon their kills. By the time our ancestors reached a carcass, the muscle, the organs, and the softer tissues were long gone, leaving only the thickest, most impenetrable leg bones. It was there, at that desperate edge of the food chain, that we discovered the marrow, a concentrated, fat-rich resource that no other scavenger possessed the physical dexterity to access. Using sharp-edged stone flakes, we cracked those bones open, a behavior that fundamentally shifted our nutritional intake and provided the dense energy necessary for physical survival. The trajectory of our diet changed forever with the mastery of fire, a transition that functioned as a biological cheat code. When we began to cook our food, roasting meat over coals and burying roots in embers, we were doing more than simply improving the taste. We were offloading the heavy work of digestion to the flames. Raw meat and fibrous plants are notoriously difficult for the human gut to break down, requiring hours of energy-intensive chemical processing. By cooking our food, we softened it and neutralized pathogens, which allowed our digestive systems to shrink and freed up massive amounts of metabolic energy. That excess energy did not disappear. It was redirected to fuel the brain, an organ that, while only a small fraction of our body weight, consumes a disproportionate amount of our daily calories. We essentially engineered our own cognitive evolution through the stove. As our brains grew in complexity, our dietary range expanded exponentially to include everything that could be harvested, dug up, or caught. We became masters of the landscape, consuming wild grains, nuts, berries, mushrooms, and shellfish from coastal environments, all while maintaining a deep, evolutionary craving for honey. This preference was not a matter of taste, it was a matter of survival, as wild honey represented one of the most efficient, sugar-rich fuels available in the natural world. This ancient program remains encoded in our biology today, where the brain continues to interpret concentrated sugar as a critical resource for fat storage and energy management. Our survival also relied on a surprisingly pragmatic approach to resources. We utilized fermentation and controlled rot, burying meat in cold streams or damp caves, because we discovered that the resulting bacterial breakdown made the food easier to chew and provided additional nutrients that fresh meat could not. The archaeological evidence also forces us to confront the more jarring aspects of our history, such as the sites in Europe where human remains show clear, systematic signs of processing identical to that of hunted game. These findings suggest that, in certain contexts, ancient humans treated members of their own kind as a viable caloric resource, a practice that existed alongside the hunting of mammoths, bison, and wild horses. Ultimately, the diet of ancient humans was defined by an unrelenting drive to secure energy in environments where scarcity was the only constant. We were creatures of extreme adaptation, turning bone marrow, insects, and even putrefying remains into the fuel that sustained our expansion across the globe. Our entire biological architecture, from the way we process sugar to the size of our brains, was forged in this crucible of hunger. We are the descendants of the scavengers who refused to starve, the innovators who harnessed fire, and the opportunists who turned the landscape itself into a pantry, proving that our success as a species was built bite by bite on our capacity to eat whatever the world provided.